Hello, my name is Patrick Vogt, and today I'd like to talk to you about an Agentforce powered business analyst. What can the business analyst do? Well, it can get to the heart of the requirements at scale and enable business analysts to focus on value added work such as business ROI analysis, value stream mapping, and identifying commonalities between requirements. There are many problems that technology teams face in our world today. First and foremost is that there's this unsatiated urge to make technology do something new. Everybody has ideas. A lot of them are great, but the problem is that requests from stakeholders are coming in from all directions these days, whether they come up informally in a meeting or over Slack or in a hallway conversation, or very rarely somebody actually takes the time to sit down and fill out a requirements document and submits it directly. When these requests are captured informally and the time is not taken to really get to the heart of the matter, it leads technology teams to make assumptions, and those assumptions lead to waste. The waste comes about because the stakeholder says, we can't use this, or what about this, what about that? And ultimately, it's so much more difficult to make changes to a technology solution once development has already begun versus in the requirements gathering stage when things are a little bit more malleable. Now, one choice that companies might try is creating a form with all kinds of questions. Think about Jira. Say, hey, go to Jira and create a user story. First of all, business stakeholders really don't know how to write user stories. That's kind of a skill. But if they did, it's very, very unlikely that they're actually going to take the time to fill out a form. So lengthy forms, in our experience, they just don't work. Ultimately, everybody's frustrated. The pressure is greater than ever to perform, to execute. And oftentimes, it's just really, really difficult to know where to begin. Everyone's frustrated. Stakeholders are frustrated. Tech teams are frustrated. Ultimately, it's not good, and we believe that there's a solution. What if an agent could guide a stakeholder through an initial requirements gathering session? I'm not talking about replacing business analysts here, just helping gather good requirements at scale. First thing is, we all know this. Everyone is accustomed to working in Slack and Teams. When the COVID-19 pandemic hit, the Slack Teams interface became the new operating system of business. So everybody is in Slack and Teams. We also know that folks are used to having conversational back and forth. Up until very recently, that's been human to human, but more and more we're seeing human to machine interaction. Now, if this agent could apply a consistent methodology, we could get more complete and well thought out requirements at the outset. Some benefits to that is, like I said, at scale, we can get, I like to use a little sports metaphor, we can get to the 10-yard line or the 20-yard line very, very quickly. We can do that at scale. Like I said, these requirements are coming from all directions. Sometimes the requests are being made to people who are just not equipped to document the requirements in the right way. So what if there was a single place that people could go to brainstorm? And then that agent could document those requirements in a well-formatted manner at scale so that professional business analysts could focus on fine-tuning those requirements and doing value-added activities like identifying the commonalities between requirements or really sussing out the business value and ROI analysis with the stakeholder. Ultimately, downstream tech teams are going to get greater clarity, and they're going to be able to focus more of their time on developing great software instead of guessing. And ultimately, stakeholders receive what they ask for. This agent has a pretty straightforward architecture. As I mentioned, at the conversational layer, the stakeholder is interacting with the agent through Slack. Slack passes messages back and forth through a Salesforce Agentforce Agent, which in this demo has three components. The first capability or topic in Salesforce Agentforce parlance, is an interviewer component. The second is a translation element that can take all of the interview and translate it into a semi-structured list of epic user stories and child user stories. The third capability takes the semi-structured list and converts it into a machine-readable format that allows the data to be saved into a database. Now, all of this is driven through the Atlas reasoning engine, Salesforce's technology that helps the agent understand which capability is the right capability to execute based on an input. Ultimately, the user stories are translated from an unstructured mishmash of interviews to a semi-structured list of user stories that the user confirms that they wish to save, to a machine-readable format that is ultimately saved into a database in a structured manner, which could then flow into a REST web service and directly integrate with an ALM such as Jira. Now for the moment you've been waiting for, let's actually demonstrate this thing. Let's start in the Salesforce org of Cognavault, a fictitious company that we'll be using in today's demo. We've built a special object inside of Salesforce called Jira issues that acts as the database storage for the issues that are inserted into the database. Now, one could decide to directly integrate with Jira instead of using Salesforce as an intermediary, but in today's demo, we are using the Jira issues object because maybe you don't want to integrate directly with Jira. Maybe there's another ALM that you want to use, or maybe you want to roll your own and have it live in Salesforce. So just to prove that nothing is going on here, we have a list view called all. There's nothing in here. And I'll even show you my filters to show you there's nothing here. Okay? So let's set the stage. We have a vice president of support who has an external support portal. And right now, when folks log cases, they can see their own cases. But there is a use case where there needs to be external management of users. So we want to deliver a capability in our support portal where somebody could manage the users at a particular customer and you essentially activate them and deactivate them and register them and so on. So let's go to the business analyst agent, which lives in Slack, and start gathering the requirements. So anyone would be trained to use the business analyst agent whenever they had an idea or they wanted, they wanted some enhancement or new feature. So we're going to go through the process in real time, and it's going to be interesting. We're still fine-tuning the agent. You're going to notice that there could be some pedantic questioning that's a little bit annoying. So we would actually need to train folks on how to interact with this agent, like saying, hey, let's move on. Of course, in an ideal situation, we would fine-tune the agent to avoid getting into a loop. But I just wanted to set the stage early in the demo that we're still working out some kinks. I want to allow users in my external support portal to manage other users at the same account. That's typically the extent of a requirement that you would get if you gave somebody a Jira form. They would just be like, hey, I need a capability where external folks can manage other external folks. But the agent asks for more information intelligently. So let's go ahead and press enter and go through the process. So what problems are account users trying to solve when managing other users in the external support portal? I think maybe the answer would be when somebody leaves the company, there needs to be a means that the client can manage the other users instead of relying on the company that's hosting the support portal. So one of the things that I like is that this agent has been trained to mirror back what it understands. So it's saying, I'm hearing the customer designated managers should manage their own accounts users in the external support portal to reduce reliance on Cognavault for enablement and disablement. What is happening today that makes this delegation important for your customers or for Cognavault operationally? So one of the things that this agent has been asked to do is to suss out the business value, because not all requests are equally valuable to the business. In this example, I think it would be fair to say that Cognavault is experiencing explosive growth, and the management of users is taking up more and more of the support engineering team's time. And as a vice president of support, I want my support engineers to focus on supporting Cognavault's products instead of managing users at the external support portal. So let me type that out in a few words. Let's see what happens with this response. It might ask, well, how much time is being spent? And this is an example of some of the pedantic questioning that we're trying to suss out. So yes, it's doing exactly what I expected. It's saying, well, what's the volume and frequency of user enablement and disablement requests? And you know what? This actually might be good information to help the actual BA tease out what the business value and ROI is going to be. So let's just make something up and say that over the past 12 months, the volume of requests has increased by 500%. Support engineers have gone from spending a few minutes a month to managing requests on a case-by-case basis to spending several hours a week on user management. This is taking time away from the core responsibilities of their job, which is to support customers with the products and services we directly sell. Now, this is an example of the pedantic questioning. It's really not necessary to gather this information, and we're working through this. So I'm going to go ahead and actually, that last question, what's the typical turnaround time per request? We cited a percentage, and I think it's really keying in on, okay, I need to know exactly how many enablement and disablement requests per week are being handled now. So let's say that there are 100 requests per week, and each request takes 5 minutes. So what is the current average turnaround time from request submission to completion for those 100 weekly enablement and disablement requests? So let's answer the question. On average, 4 hours, because maybe the case is submitted, it sits in a queue, and it ultimately takes 4 hours to turn the thing around. The request takes 4 hours to turn around due to time the request sits in a queue for assignment. Ultimately, I want the agent to drop it and move on, and this is an example of where we are going to have to guide the agent to move on to the next thing if it keeps asking. But actually, I'm pleasantly surprised it's actually going to move on. Let's read through what it said. So it's rephrasing that Cognavault support engineers are handling about 100 user management requests per week, each taking 5 minutes of effort, but about 4 hours end-to-end due to queue delays. Workload has grown substantially and is pulling engineers away from core support activities. The desired future state is to delegate enablement and disablement to customer-designated managers in the external support portal, reducing reliance on Cognavault for routine user changes. And now it's trying to dig deeper. So how are customers currently submitting these enable-disable requests, and through which channel do they expect to manage them in the future? So I think that's a good question. Currently, customers either email us or submit a case through the support portal. Going forward, designated management users will be empowered to manage other users at the same account directly. They could do things like reset a password, disable a user, or even sign a new user up. Let's see what it does with that. Which specific actions must customer-designated managers be able to perform in the portal at launch, and which actions would be nice to have later? Again, this is part of the configuration of the agent, helping suss out what are the core requirements, what are the nice-to-haves. So let's go ahead and say the MVP capability for initial launch is to enable and disable users. existing users at the same account. All other abilities are important, but nice to have, and can be scheduled for a later release. Are there any guardrails or approval rules that must apply before a manager can enable or disable a user, or is it instantaneous upon their action? Just to keep things simple, let's just say it's instantaneous. Once a manager has been designated, there are no additional guardrails, and their actions take effect immediately. So once a customer manager is designated, their enable-disable action should take effect immediately with no approvals or extra checks. Who designates these managers today and through which process? I think you get it. It's really sussing out all of the details. Let's move on. And I'm just going to say, let's move on. Can you please generate summary of your understanding of these requirements so far? So this is exactly what we want. It's saying current state, pain points, desired future state, out of scope, business outcomes, success metrics, assumptions, risks, and constraints. So now I'm going to say, yes, I would like to see the full summary now. And then we're going to ask it to generate the user stories and then finally save them. Now it's asking if it would like for the user stories to be drafted. Let's go ahead and draft the user stories. Now it's going to ask, well, what is the project code that these user stories should be associated with? And if you're interacting with the business analyst agent, you would know BA for business applications. So let's just type in BA. Now it's going to output the semi-structured list of epic user stories and child user stories. Exactly what we want. Let's just review what it output. The epic story summarizes the entire interview, and then the individual user stories break things down. Designate customer managers for user management, enable customer managers to disable users, and enable customer managers to enable users. So now it's asking if we'd like to save these user stories into the system. This is where the magic happens. We're going to take this semi-structured list of user stories and convert it into a machine-readable format that enables them to be saved in a structured data table. This step might take a little bit, but let's just hang out and wait. All right, it's saying that the user stories have been saved. Let's see if they actually are. Let's go back to the Salesforce org and refresh this view. There they are. Let's open this epic user story. We have all of the information, the project key, the issue type, the summary and description. And then if we scroll down, we can see the related user stories. Designate customer managers, enable customer managers to disable users and enable users. And when we open up one of these child user stories, we see everything is sussed out in the structured format that we would need to integrate it with an ALM. So we have the project key, the issue type, the summary and the description, the as a customer account administrator. I want to designate managers who can manage user accounts so that they can enable and disable users without involving Cognavault support. Here are my acceptance criteria. So these data rows in the table could be used to integrate with a REST web service and cause these user stories to be embedded into the BA project in Jira. So in summary, you have just seen a full end-to-end demo of an agentic business analyst gathering requirements on behalf of a stakeholder and documenting the initial draft of the user stories so that a professional business analyst can gather additional requirements, suss out additional information, and do further grooming so that the tech team will ultimately be able to do the work without guessing. Thank you for watching this demo. I hope you enjoyed it, and I look forward to your feedback.